वेलकम टू टुडेज़ लाइव सेशन। अगले 15 या 20 मिनट में मैं आपको ये बताऊंगी हाउ यू हैव टू एग्जैक्टली प्रिपेयर फॉर योर ग्रामर एंड वोकैबुलरी फॉर द जुडिशरी एग्जाम्स। अच्छा, for the judiciary exams in a more smart, practical and exam oriented way. Now English is one of the most scoring papers in prelims, and indirectly it helps you in mains, judgment and answer writing and even interviews. So let's begin. Now why English matters in judiciary? Now most of the aspirants, they basically think English is only for the prelims, but that's not the case. That's not true. English is essential because you have to read judgments, you have to draft orders, you have to interpret the statutes, you have to understand the legal terminology. So for that part, English is very important. Now if your grammar is being strong, you can interpret the sentences with clarity. And if your vocabulary is strong, you can understand the judgments in a more faster and a more efficient and a more enhanced way. So English is not just a subject, it's actually a judicial skill. It's not a subject per se, it's a judicial skill which has to be acquired over a period of time. So what the judiciary exam actually asks, right? So that's an important question, what it exactly asks. So we'll try and break English into two parts. First is grammar, second is vocabulary. Now what does the exam ask? Say for instance, if I'm asking from the point of grammar, so they'll be asking you questions like spotting errors, sentence improvement, fill in the blanks, voice and narration. And for the vocabulary part, you have legal terms, you have Latin maxims, then you've got synonyms, antonyms, you have got usage in a particular sentence, and you have the judicial terminology. So these are the most questions which are being asked, and these are not theory based, these are more or less application based. So application is what is being required from the exam point of view. So you can basically try and learn these by examples. You don't have to mug up everything, but you can try and learn these by examples. Now let's talk about the grammar part. Now grammar, it's a very high priority area, and there are certain topics which are actually being asked. So let's talk about the grammar. And judiciary examiners, they also take specific topics, right? Now the top priorities could be tenses, sequence of tenses, then you've got pronoun consistency, you've got subject verb agreement. These are the topics which are being asked. There can be modifiers, articles, determiners, prepositions, active passive, direct indirect and parallelism. So these are the oft repeated topics which are being asked every now and then in the examination. Now 80% of the syllabus or 80% of the topics are being covered from these topics, or 80% of the syllabus or 80% of the questions in the exam are asked from these topics. So these topics are quite important from the exam point of view. Now the first step, what you have to do is you have to study, right? Study is very important, but do not study everything, right? You don't have to study everything under the sun, but study what really matters from the exam point of view, because we are talking about a smart preparation. We're talking about a practical approach, right? And we are talking about an exam oriented smart and practical approach. So for that you have to study, but study what really matters from the exam point of view. Now how to study grammar in a more smarter way? Now judiciary grammar is not like the competitive exams, right, where you have to learn 200 rules. So the approach should be, you have to learn rules, but you have to learn the rules with the help of examples. If you learn it by examples, you remember, you have more retention capacity, right? So your memory would be retaining more if you learn it by examples. Now you have to practice 15 to 20 error spotting questions on a daily basis, right? You have to do this exercise every day. Now you have to focus on the formal legal English and not the casual English, right? You have to focus on the formal part of English and not on the casual part, right? Now a huge mistake what students make is that they try and memorize the rules. You don't have to memorize them, you have to learn them with the help of examples, right? Because examiners, they test your sense, right? They test your sense of language and not the theory part, right? So they're trying to sense what you comprehend from that, right? And they're not testing your theory part. So that's very important. Now you have to explain the style also, and you have to keep it in a very simple and a very brief kind of manner. Say for instance, when you read a judgment, so you will see sentences like, for example, The petitioner contends that the decision is arbitrary. Now you have to notice the clarity, the formality, and the correct verb usage, right? Now in this particular sentence, you have to notice the clarity, formality, and the correct verb usage. Now the judicial style automatically improves your grammar part. So reading is actually the grammar practice. The more you read, the more you are equipped with the grammar part, right? The more you are acquainted with the grammar part. Now let's try and decipher the vocabulary part. Now what vocabulary actually you need from the judicial exam perspective? So judiciary vocabulary is very different from the normal vocabulary which is used in a day-to-day life, right? So judicial words are entirely different from the normal words which we use into our day-to-day life. Now you need 4 types. There could be legal terms, for example, the words like breach, estoppel, jurisdiction, right? These are all the legal words. There could be high frequency judiciary words like invoke, concede, detrimental. So these are high frequency words. Then there could be Latin maxims like audi altum partum, then res ipsa loquitur. Then there could be editorial vocabulary like ratify, exacerbate, mitigate. So if you cover 4 categories which I've actually mentioned above, 90% of the vocabulary questions are being done. So if you try and revolve around these 4 topics, your 90% of the vocab part is being done, right? Now the best way to build a good vocabulary is through contextual or through context part and not through the memorization, because if you try and memorize it, you tend to forget. So it's better you build a context regarding that word or revolving around that word, right? Now you have to follow a particular formula. Now daily you have to write 15 words, right? That is 5 legal terms. Then you have to write 5 advanced maxim English words, then 3 Latin maxims, 2 courtroom and drafting terms, right? Then you have to make a small vocabulary notebook, right? Now in vocabulary notebook, word, then you've got the meaning, synonym, antonym, and then the sentence. If you write the word, you write the meaning, you write the synonym, you write the antonym, and then you frame a sentence. So this basically gives you a permanent retention. This way you will be remembering each and every word and you will not forget the word, right? Now you can learn vocabulary through usage also, right? Now reading is the #1 way to build the judicial vocabulary, right? Because when you see a word which is being used in judgment, you basically understand it. You understand by the tone, by the context as to what the word is trying to say you. For example, we have per incurium or manifesting arbitrariness or prima facie. Now these are not the textbook words, right? These are not used in day-to-day life, right? These are all the legal words. So they are judicial words, right? So we have to focus more on the practical usage. Now, part C, when we're trying to tell, is you have to develop a reading routine. Now, the 30-minute reading routine is, if there is one habit that can transform your grammar and vocabulary, it is through reading. The more you read, the more sound vocab and the more enhanced grammar you'll have, right? So you have to follow a 30-minute routine daily, in which 15 minutes should be allotted to the Supreme Court or maybe to the High Court judgments, right? 10 minutes for the Hindu editorial, right? So the editorial page is very important. So 15 minutes you have to devote every day to that. Then 5 minutes is for the legal current affairs. That's also being covered through the newspaper. So this one routine, what it's trying to improve, right? It would be improving your grammar. It would be improving your vocabulary. Then the writing style would be definitely enhanced. It would be far more better, right? and there would be comprehending, there would be more comprehending ability, right? And you'll be able to comprehend things in a more better way, and you will have a thinking apparatus, or you'll have a thinking ability. So these 5 things are being improved if you do a 30-minute routine of reading a daily newspaper or daily routine, right? It's a 30-minute routine for daily you have to practice, so that you can fare well on these fronts, right? Because everything you will get in one shot, right? Reading through the newspapers, you get the Supreme Court, you get the High Court judgments, right? You get the grammar, you get the vocab, you can easily enhance your writing style. And comprehending, you'll be able to think or able to comprehend things in a more better way, and definitely your critical things would be, or critical skills would be far improved, right? Now you have to make notes. Now every day you have to make notes and you have to make practice, right? Now what is a note making system? Now first of all, try and make 2 notebooks. First, for the vocabulary part, right? You have to write 15 words daily, right? 15 words you have to write daily with examples, right? Because if you try and relate it with the examples, you won't be forgetting it, right? And then you have to write a grammar error log, right? So whenever a question goes wrong, you have to write as to what was the mistake which is being made by me, right? And what rules it relates to, and how to avoid that. So by answering these 3 questions, you'll try and simplify your weaknesses into strength, right? So weaknesses would be consecutively improved over a span of time, so that would be converted into strength. So that's very important. Then we have got a practice strategy also. Practice strategy is equally important. So you have to do weekly practice, right? You have to spot the errors in a particular sentence. You have to improvise a sentence, so there should be a sentence improvement exercise. Then you should try and attempt fill in the blanks. Then you should try and attempt the PYQs from the multiple states. And you don't have to solve, right? You just don't have to solve it. You have to analyze why that particular answer is being correct, right? So you have to analyze as to why that particular answer is being correct. This is where the actual learning happens, right? Now, what should be the last minute strategy? So the last minute strategy is, I'll be wrapping the session with a very simple formula. So this is the formula which I'm trying to tell you, and this should be remembered, that grammar equal to vocabulary grammar is equal to grammar, vocabulary, reading, and then we have practice. So these are the 4 words with which we'll try and wrap our session. So grammar, vocabulary, reading, and practice. Now, grammar, the more you do grammar, the more accuracy you get, right? So grammar is more or less equal to accuracy. Vocabulary is more or less equal to understanding, how you comprehend things, how you comprehend ideas, right? So vocabulary is understanding. Then reading is actually the very basis of basically the foundation, right? Or the cornerstone that basically builds your vocabulary and your grammar skills, right? So reading is very much important. It's the pertinent foundation which tries and builds your grammar and vocabulary at the same time. And over a span of time, when you try and practice all these things, you basically you get the mastery, right? You get the mastery of the art. So I'll try and wrap up the session by saying that grammar is accuracy. The more you practice grammar, the more accuracy you'll get in that. Vocabulary is actually understanding. Reading is the foundational basis of everything, be it the grammar, be it the vocabulary. And the more you practice it, the more mastery you'll have over these things, right? So this is a simple formula through which you can basically see as to how to develop a good vocabulary and how to develop grammar from judicial perspective. Thank you.